Hey guys, it's Camus, and welcome to round 4 of our coverage of the Atkins tournament, specifically Michael Basman's performance in that tournament. So let's begin with this 4th round game. He's playing an expert here, a Mr. John Fletcher, and Basman has white. He begins with 1g4, and once again I find it completely hilarious that Rybka assesses that black has equalized in this position. You got to admire the calm precision of black's play. Seemingly effortlessly, he's managed to equalize. Black did play a move. He played d5, which is one of the popular choices against this. And as we mentioned before, Basman doesn't like the tactical variations after bishop to g2. He likes the so-called positional approach of h3. His opponent grabs the classical pawn center with e5, and Basman naturally follows with bishop to g2. Black plays bishop to c5 in this position, and a thematic move in the Grob, c4. Now black plays knight to f6, but he could actually play d takes c4 here. Queen to a4 check is possible. c6, queen takes c4, queen to b6, e3, bishop to e6, queen to c2. And black is better here. He's overextended himself on the king's wing, and black is got more pieces out. So also has this lineup with the bishop and the queen. But instead of that, after c4, he played knight to f6, which is fine too. Basman continued, knight to c3. And now, something of an inaccuracy, I think. He plays d4, resolving the central tension. I think maybe more thematic would have been c6, c takes d5, knight takes d5, knight to f3, knight to f4, bishop to f1, castles, e3, knight to g6 is equal. Or even better, he could have taken on c4, queen to a4, c6, queen takes c4, queen to b6, e3, bishop to e6, queen to e2, knight b to d7, similar to the other lines that we looked at. And black is better here. So anyway, he didn't play any of those things. He resolved the central tension and played d4. Now the knight is attacked, so knight to e4. That's hitting the bishop. And the knight on f6, so he more or less was forced to take here. Bishop takes e4. And now castles. Rybka assesses this position as being equal. I suppose that white's bishop is better than his counterpart on c5. It's blocked in by his own pawns. In this position, white naturally played d3. And he's blockading this pawn, keeping black's bishop relatively ineffective. Black responded with c6. I guess he's worried about the long diagonal, which can be a problem after moves like queen to b3. But in this particular position, there was no actual threat, and he should have probably spent a tempo on developing a piece. Meanwhile, white does develop a piece. Knight to f3. Black strikes out with f5. G takes f5. Bishop takes f5. And now Basman plays an inaccuracy here, I'm pretty sure. He plays knight to g5, which ordinarily would be fine, but I think he's made an oversight here. Better than knight to g5 was simply bishop takes f5, rook takes f5, rook to g1, knight to d7, a3, with equal chances. So after bishop takes f5, he played this knight to g5 move, and I think he's overlooked something, because after bishop to b4, he probably intended to play bishop to d2, and then saw that fails to queen to g5, exploiting the pin on the bishop. So that's not so good. So after bishop to b4, he played king to f1. I'm sure that's not a move that he was thrilled to make, putting the king on the same line as the rook. So bishop to e7 was played after this. And now h4. Even though Basman's king's stuck on this wing, he still has every intention of attacking and opening lines, and he's not afraid to sacrifice a pawn to that end. You can see one of the hallmarks of Basman's style is even though he ends up in these less than ideal opening positions, that he's always striving for activity. It might have been better for him to choose a better opening that guarantees a better chance for activity in the first place, but this is the way he likes to play. So anyway, who are we to argue? So after h4, white took on e4, the knight recaptured. Perhaps he should have taken on g5 first. Well, I suppose no, that doesn't work, because after bishop takes g5, you'd be attacking the queen. So anyway, I guess this is as good as any. Knight takes e4. And now black makes something of an error of judgment. He plays bishop takes h4, winning this pawn. As I said, Basman has no problem sacrificing pawns if it means open lines and activity. Rather than bishop takes h4, he would have done better to play, just get a piece out. Knight to d7, h5, knight to f6, knight takes f6 check, bishop takes f6, f3, shutting down black's dreams on the f file, bishop to h4, rook to g1, queen to d7, and this queen is coming in. White's king does not seem too secure here. Bishop to d2, queen to h3 check, rook to g2, and I'm pretty sure this is not a position that white was hoping for when he played 1g4. But anyway, black did not play this way. After knight to e takes e4, he grabbed the pawn on h4. And now white plays characteristic move in the Grob, queen to b3, and he's got some sort of veiled threat on this long light square diagonal leading to the king, and also he's hitting the pawn on b7. Now, black decided to get a piece out now, but he probably needed to play a queen to e7, defending this b pawn. So he played knight to d7 instead. But now, actually, white can safely capture this b pawn. In other games we've seen in this tournament, the b pawn was a hot one. But in this present position, it looks like white can get away with taking this pawn back and restoring material equality. But first he takes a tempo out for f3. If he had taken the pawn immediately, queen takes b7, rook to c8, f3 now, bishop to e7, queen takes a7, knight to f6, knight to g3. It's actually, Ribka assesses this as equal, despite the fact that white is a pawn up. I'm not so sure this outside passed pawn on the a file might be something that black needs to reckon with. But anyway, Ribka says it's equal. So we'll go back. After queen to b3, he played knight to d7, as we mentioned. And rather than taking the pawn right away, he plays f3 just to shut down the idea of any blitzkrieg attack on the f file. Now black plays queen to e7, just giving away this b pawn. And knight to b6 would have been better. Knight to b6, c5 check. And he's not winning a piece because the knight can just go to d5. Queen takes b7, rook to c8, queen takes a7, h6, a4, and equal according to Ribka. Though I don't know, after a bishop to d2 and a5, again I think this a pawn could be a problem for black, but that's not what Ribka thinks. So we'll go back to the game. After queen to e7, instead of knight to b6, which is what he probably should have played, Basman now takes the pawn off, and Rybka considers that white is now better in the game for the first time on move 17. So black responded, rook f to c8. And now our hero misses an opportunity to win on the spot. I guess he was worried about his queen getting trapped. He played queen to a6 to expedite his removal from the danger area. But he had a good move in rook takes h4, queen takes h4, queen takes d7. He's got 2 pieces for a rook. I guess another possibility was that after rook takes h4, rook a to b8, he might have been worried about being trapped here. But after bishop to g5, exclam, queen to e6, queen takes a7, rook to a8, knight to c5, hitting the white queen, rook takes a7, knight to e6. This is just winning for white. Anyway, Basman missed his chance there, and he played, as I mentioned before, after rook f to c8, he played queen to a6 instead of rook takes h4. Black responded, bishop to f6, and now Basman, as I said, he's always on the lookout for activity. He decides to sacrifice a pawn. To that end, he plays b4. Queen takes b4. And the point of Basman's move was bishop to a3. And he's getting this piece aggressively posted and causing black to lose the tempo. He plays queen to b6. Naturally, white is in no mood to exchange queens, so he plays queen to a4. Now rook a to b8. He's threatening to come in on this b file. Actually, he has got no entry points, so despite the loose nature of the position, he's not really threatening anything here. White played knight to d6. Good move. Now he's attacking the rook on c8. Consider what you would do as if you were black in this position. He could have probably played rook to f8. After c5, queen to c7, queen to c4 check, king to h8, knight to f7 check, rook takes f7, queen takes f7. He's up in exchange, but the position is not yet dead. There's still some fight. Alternatively, after knight to d6, he had rook to c7, but this is an error because of c5, knight takes c5, queen to c4 check, king to h8, bishop takes c5, and white is winning this one. He's up a piece. Probably the best move in the position after knight to d6 was queen to c7. Not an easy move to find when your rook is attacked. Knight takes c8, queen takes c8, king to f2. White is better, but black is a pawn for the exchange, and there's a lot of play left in the position. But he didn't do any of these. He chose, actually, after knight to d6, he made the worst choice. He played the natural move, rook d8, but I guess he didn't calculate this through, because after c5, he had to resign. On move 23, he resigned in lieu of c5, queen to c7, queen to c4 check, king to h8, knight to f7, for forking the rook and the king here, but it's worse than that. King to g8, knight to g5 check, king to h8, and rook takes h7. So that pawn that white won on move 14 cost him the game from this open file. So short and sweet game by Basman. Once again, he was basically, I wouldn't say on the ropes from the opening, but he didn't get a particularly good position from his opening, unsurprisingly, but fought back and found the right moves to gain the full point. So Basman's 4-0 in this tournament. I'm sure he must have been quite happy. We'll have the exciting 5th round conclusion on the next installment from the Atkins tournament. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.